Call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. And I may begin by saying, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order, imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Reading School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. We're going to begin with public input, and for those that are members of the public that are here, the point of this is if anybody has any thoughts about something that is not on the agenda, we'll give you time to ask questions on any items that are on the agenda. But I'll pause for a few seconds to see if anybody has any comments or any questions for the public input. Okay, hearing none, I move on. And we're going to first start with our student report. And we are lucky enough to have Gianna, and I'm going to probably screw up your name here, Navalo, as our student representative from the class of 2023. So Gianna, would you like to start? You need to unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Gianna Nalivo. I'm in the class of 2022. Oh. Sorry,
That's what you thought. Now you're 2023.
Can you hear me?
Kidding. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hello. Okay, so starting with in school. This week was Spirit Week for North Reading High School. Today was Flannel Day, and tomorrow will be Spirit Day, and it's been very successful. I've seen a lot of school spirit. And also tomorrow is the end of the quarter, so students will be getting report cards, and that marks the end of term quarter one. And then as for clubs and sports, both our girls and boys soccer teams came out Cal champions, so very exciting. And continue on sports, the students and the teams are working on like concrete information on the winter sports, which I know is part of the agenda today. And so far they've been holding informal practices to continue working. And Interact is working on a mask fundraiser, and DECA and Maskers both had successful mask fundraisers and are continuing upon them. The DECA chapter at North Reading High School will be competing virtually and on a much different set of rules this time as well. And Notorious got accepted into the international competition, which is a huge feat, which is ICHSA, and they also got accepted into Any Voices to compete in the New England competition, and they'll be receiving placements soon. As for student council, they attended the NEMASC conferences last week. I think Ms. Sanner knows in this successful. I thought that they were carried out great. And as for more holiday directed stuff, Maskers will be holding Santa calling, which is they call people, kids can like get calls from Santa. So that's Boys Lacrosse is starting their holiday wreaths fundraiser, and student council also did holiday card signing for the veterans, which was a school-wide event. And to circle back to academics, something that I wanted to share, something that I thought was very, very successful within my classes, which was the use of specifically in my class, my world history class, we've been using Peer Deck to answer questions. So it's been really successful in keeping the students engaged. And honestly, in post-COVID teaching, it would be like a great asset to the learning experience. So, yeah, that's all I have for today.
Very good. Thank you, Gianna. I think this is your first meeting, so congratulations. Anybody have any questions or comments?
So. Gianna, nice job.
Scott, it's
Janine, go ahead.
Yes. I was just curious, how did the big student council meeting go last week? It's down in Hyannis, right?
That is our state conference, which I'm unsure on details about that one, but this was part of the smaller sector that we're a part of, which is NEMASC, which is Northeast Massachusetts Association of Student Councils. So leadership building experience. I learned a lot.
Good, thank you.
I see a raised hand by Mr. Papavasilio. Chris, go ahead.
Figured I'll use the feature. Gianna, great job. As a guy named Papavasilio, I understand when Mr. Buckley has trouble with last name. I thought it was really great that you pointed out Pear Deck and that you thought that was good. It had been very helpful that some teachers had used. I was wondering, apart from that, is there anything you've seen in classes so far that has happened, that some way of teaching that teachers are doing that's happened because of COVID, but that you think is a really cool thing that you hope they do more in the future?
Sure. So, like I said, that interactive part of school in general has been, I think, really effective, at least on my end, for like because be a successful student.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may, again, this is Dr. Daly.
Go ahead, Dr. Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, if I may, just to, I had I had Paris's name in there and her grade, and then when I switched it, I think I left the wrong year. So again, sorry about that, Jana. You were talking a little bit about, and some of you, when we meet with the other reps, we're talking about the some of the advantages to the remote and just also the late starts. If you wanted to give your 2 cents on that.
So there's a lot of mixed opinions about the hybrid model, but overall, I think that they are very positive opinions. Obviously, it's to hybrid learning very well. And we talked about the late start, as Dr. Daly had mentioned, and it's very popular among the students. It's really helped with getting to do more things later into the night and not worrying about it, like especially like completing your assignments to the fullest potential that you can, things like that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Rich, any thoughts? Or
well, I was just going to say, and thank you for your report, Gianna, but I was going to say we heard Mr. Papavasilio and I heard from the folks in the fine arts, in our fine arts subcommittee, which we'll talk more about later, but we're talking about Notorious. And what's interesting is that if I understood them correctly, they're going to be doing their performances in some of these competitions in the way that some people may have seen groups do, especially early on in the pandemic, where each individual person records their portion individually, and then they will have to bring them together and mix them together into one presentation. So I think that will be really interesting, and a good challenge for them above and beyond just the music part of it. So congratulations to them, of course, for getting accepted, but I thought that was interesting.
Very good. Thank you. And Gianna, you're welcome to stay. I think if you could stay maybe through Dr. Daly's update, and then there is that one part that Principal LaPrette is going to talk about. I think it'd be great to have a student voice on that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Daly to give the reopening update.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Buckley. So I think that so much has been covered this week. Certainly since our last meeting, we received some emails from parents who had questions about our decision to go into the the hybrid, from the hybrid into the full remote for the few days leading into Thanksgiving. We had to clarify that, that information came out Friday morning. Friday afternoon, Governor Baker came out with some new additional information about what they were thinking in terms of districts, trying to bring students back more in person. And so we felt the need to have a clarifying parent forum and listening forum. And I would say just, based on attendance and feedback received, that it was successful in its goal of trying to communicate more information. There's just so much out there and so many questions and great comments came in. I had over 800 families respond to the survey, and we had over 500 people. There's a limit of 250 within Google, and then another several hundred were able to join live. And that my kids were impressed with me for the first time tonight, because I told them I had 1.7 thousand views on YouTube already from Tuesday. So I know Mr. Buckley probably watched it 500 times, so that could be part of it. But no, but I think it was good information that folks wanted to hear. And like I shared, you had 60% of the people feeling one way, 40% feeling the other. People are certainly divided. There's a lot of mixed emotions, but I think certainly having some clarity about the district's position was helpful. And I think sometimes, having any answer in uncertain times is helpful. And so that's really what we tried to provide. And that information I did share out with the entire community through Blackboard, and it's on the blog as well for folks that want to view and review any of the questions that are there. So I feel like there was a lot answered. Maybe there's some questions that folks might have for me following from that. But I will say also that, one of the things that we certainly thought was important was to gather more parent and teacher feedback on the calendar change for December. And the question that came out, there were over close to 500 responses on that survey, and it's about 93% in favor of the changes recommended for the December calendar, which would be the 3 solid weeks once we get back, followed by the amended, so it would be remote days on the 21st and 22nd, and for students, the 23rd would be a full day that they would not be coming to school at all. That would be essentially to them an earlier start to the vacation. And then we would have to look and adjust the calendar moving forward in terms of balancing the cohorts and making sure we have all of the days for the calendar that are to be accomplished this year. However, it's an opportunity to get those 3 solid weeks and also to have less time missed with the conferences, all of that being combined in those days. So it was pretty overwhelmingly positive. When you just look at just the parents that responded, it was about 90% in favor, and the teachers who were also parents, it was 100% in favor. So I think that that's a pretty good sign that we should probably move forward with that. And I think everyone just wants to know, the sooner the better, that those are the actual dates. So any questions for me at this time?
People can raise their hand or type in if anybody from the public has comments as well. I will just say, Dr. Daly, I really appreciated you having that forum. It's great to see how many people attended. I do know that a couple of things that came out of there, there's also been follow-up on already as well. Some questions came up about the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, and I know there's another parent forum that is going to be scheduled to talk about that. There are some questions about kindergarten, and I just overall appreciate that, Dr. Daly, you're always on top of it and trying to communicate. I understand that, a lot of people are concerned about how things are happening. And, you know, I communicated with a lot of parents before the forum as well. And I just think I appreciate the parents that are, you know, presuming positive intent. And I just think overall, we all have to understand that there's no perfect way to do any of this. We're all trying. People are trying to communicate, you know, over communicate and really do what we think is best. And, you know, we understand that next week is going to be challenging with kids out of school and doing remote, but, you know, there's some counterweights as well, which is what made us do it. So that's just my comments. I just appreciated your, you know, your transparency about it and taking all those questions. And I don't know, I'll kind of go through the committee quickly to see if anybody has any comments. Mr. McGowan, I do know every committee member was also at that parent forum. And so I appreciate my fellow committee members as well, taking the time to participate as well. Mr. McGowan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it was a good forum, I thought, and there was a lot of good questions, a lot of good sort of back and forth in the chat, and I appreciate everyone who was able to attend. But I think it worked out well.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes, go ahead.
May I just say thank you to all those that attended, including those folks from the town who were there, who also provided feedback afterwards, and some commented during the meeting. And there were some questions that I didn't get to, but I did get a transcript of the chat, and I am going to reach out to some of those folks individually. And then, as you mentioned, there are some follow-up forums. The schools are doing something with the kindergartens, and Dr. O'Connell and I have worked to have a forum for kindergarten. I'm sorry, for 6th grade next week. So I think that will be very important as well.
Excellent. Chris P. and Janine had no comments, and neither does Ms. Boutwell. So if anybody from the public has any comments, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute. And if not, we will move on to, and again, I'm going to just jump ahead. And so Principal O'Pratt, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear from you. And I know I'm a little bit out of order here, but an update on a potential change for the North Reading High School this year.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. So I'm going to be speaking for a couple of moments here on a memo that I sent to Dr. Daly and Mr. Colleen as the incoming assistant superintendent. And the topic of the memo, which I'm hoping you have a copy of, it's my understanding that the members of the committee have seen a copy of the memo, speaks to our normal routine of having mid-year exams. And as I've requested in the memo for Dr. Daly's approval, my request to kind of suspend the mid-year exam for this year. The reason behind that are many. Obviously, with the impact of the virus and the number of things that we are doing differently, our hybrid model, the logistics around maximizing our opportunities for instruction, for in-person instruction, for the remote model and that's effectiveness. Right now, with our normal mid-year exam, the mid-year exam is 10% of the grade, and the final exam makes up 10% of the grade. Quarter grades are 20%. So that's just kind of the one side of it. Never mind the scheduling side, but just to talk about the equity, the fairness, the impact on learning, in saying that we're going to hold students to the same 10% weight of a mid-year exam. This is a topic that I reviewed with the leadership team. I had input from other KPN principals, and many of them are, I would say, if they haven't already phased out mid-year exams, they are making this same move. And that just the idea of saying that 10% of your grade right now is going to be determined by a mid-year exam experience where we're all learning and growing through our hybrid model differently. As much as I think we try to make it as equitable as we can. Now, and again, that's kind of the philosophical side. The practical side, again, even also on a with respect to the impact on student learning directly, what we would have to do with the cohort model is essentially double the time of mid-year exams. It wouldn't be a 1 week; it would be 2 weeks. And again, another impact on instructional time in the classroom. I think we'd be looking at questions around test integrity. I think one might say, well, couldn't a portion of the exam be kind of a take-home? And then to say, well, I think we all might deal with those things differently. And I'm not sure what's being tested on a take-home exam all the time. What are we really assessing? So I think there are a number of reasons. I hope I've made them clear in the memo. I hope I've made them a little more clear in my presentation of that idea. What we would do right now is ultimately, at this point, if we were to cancel, suspend or cancel the mid-year exam, we could move forward with the idea that we still may have a final exam and we could have the quarters weight at 23% and an 8% final exam, and see how we could go with that. And that's really the content of the memo and the request of the superintendent. And again, my hope for your support this evening.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. LaPrette. So committee members first, any comments or questions? Not all at once. I will start off and say, go ahead.
I had the hand up, Mr. Buckner.
Go ahead, Chris.
It's a new system. So, Mr. LaPrette, I appreciate two things. I appreciate you sharing this with us, and I appreciate kind of trying to approach a difficult problem and come up with a solution to it, as opposed to just moving on with things as normal. So thank you. I feel for the kids and all the stress involved, and also the logistical difficulties that you did a good job of pointing out. I see in the memo the idea that there'll be some sorts of common assessments, and that this proposal has come with a lot of input from a lot of sources. So I assume that this isn't going to be an issue of teachers. Now you got to figure out something else, and pulling out the rug from under them. But I do want to say that moving away from mid-years this year in particular, but just in general, is a pretty good move towards finding other ways to assess kids that approaches a lot of different learning styles. It's something that that I was seeing in my school in Wakefield for the last few years. So it's definitely one of those things that maybe we come out of COVID trying new things out and finding out that they work. I am curious, will there be requirements in each classroom that there's some sort of assessment, that there's some sort of thing going on, as opposed to just we're going to spend a little bit more time on this chapter?
Thank you. Happy to answer that question. So this is something that, again, that the leadership team recognizes. I think exactly the point that you're saying is, if we go away from this, what are we really losing everything? And I think collectively, I'm very confident in saying that the common assessment model and that approach that has been employed. And while I would say, across departments at different times, I would say different units might have components of common assessment in them anyway. I think that's certainly the message for the kind of quarter-2 assessments, end of quarter-2 assessment. Can we make sure that we're identifying certain questions, certain methodologies that would be consistent across sections, that would allow us to continue to measure, in that the same breadth of student growth, and relying on standards that we've recognized in the past that we do want to see across assessments, across sections and across grade levels. So yes, that is something that while I failed to mention it in my presentation, it is certainly covered in the memo, and that is supported at the leadership team level, yes.
Okay, Mr. LaPrette, I have a couple of comments and questions. The first one is, I actually hadn't even thought of the idea of how you actually do it fairly, because if half the group is in person and half the group is out of person, and I imagine you can't do it at different times, because then there's the worry that, one group has already seen it and then could talk to a friend about what's on it. If you give 2 different exams, that would be a little bit, off. If one of them's at home and so there's technical issues or any sort of distractions. So I think just from a logistical standpoint, I think it makes a lot of sense that I just don't know exactly how you do it completely fairly and equitably if you don't do this. But beyond that, I think everybody will wonder, like, well, what the future holds with this. And I think with anything we're doing, we're saying this is only for 1 year. But what I hope is that we really are evaluating what this means. And so with anything, like, I hope that we use this year, not just as we're not doing it this year because it's hard to do this year, but I hope we use this as a pilot and really put some metrics in place, some evaluation, maybe even do some student surveys, some teacher surveys from this, really to see what this means, so that, with anything that we're changing during COVID, I think it's valuable to look back whenever we go back full time in person to really see what worked and what didn't work. So I just would encourage you to put some metrics in place to evaluate this as a pilot, so that we can learn from it a little bit at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're absolutely on the same page there. And those metrics and those, those assessment reviews will definitely be taking place at the leadership team level, so that we can gain as much as we can out of the experience, and use it to kind of shape, well, let's just say informed decision making. But like you, I think, I'm of the same belief of, if we're just going to decide to stop doing something, doesn't that force us to ask, why did we ever do it in the first place, if it's just that easy to stop doing it? So it'll be a very thoughtful approach, trust me.
Okay. Gianna, did you have any thoughts on this?
Thank you, Mr. LaPrette. I thought that was a great presentation, and I think that the proposed option seems very well thought out, and I agree that it suits the hybrid model very well.
Ms. Cronin put in the chat that it's a great opportunity to implement UDL for assessments as well. We've talked about UDL a little bit at some of our previous meetings. So I don't know if there's anybody else, raise your hand if you have any other comments or thoughts. If not, I will note in the memo, it looks like we actually there's a request for 2 different votes, it looks like. There's this vote, and then there's also a vote for a change to the schedule. I don't know if that's something that we need to do here as well, Dr. Daly, or is that part of another piece of this?
I'm sorry to say.
So at the end of the memo that's showing right now, it says your approval is also requested for a small change in, it says your approval is also requested for a small change in the school calendar. And I don't know if, go down right underneath that.
Okay, if I can speak to that.
Yeah.
I was just letting Dr. Daly know that I had intended to move our parent-teacher conference back 1 week, given the, the full remote model after on the 30th, you know what I mean? We felt like we might need a little more time with, we never have grades around Thanksgiving. The grading process, the Q1 usually ends the first week of November. So now that we've ended Q1, and this is a point that Gianna, I want to go back to something you had mentioned. The grades still have to be completed and calculated and pushed out into the student portal. So because Thanksgiving kind of messes that up a little bit, because we never really have the calendar, the quarter calendar impacted by Thanksgiving, I had asked Dr. Daly if we could bump the parent-teacher conference night back 1 week to the 7th. That's the bottom of that memo.
And so I guess to Dr. Daly, I just don't know if that's something that you need a school committee vote on or not. I just want to make sure that I know all the motions you want.
Yeah, I hold on. Am I on?
You are.
I am. Great. I'm doing multiple screens again. Yeah, I believe that, you know, we could just vote on both of these items separately. That might just be effective. We could also, you know, I don't have it on there officially to vote on the calendar change for December, but we could just vote on both updates to the calendar. I do think that the changing of you know, I don't know that the school committee always votes when we change or postpone a conference day or something, but I think it doesn't hurt to do that, right? So. Okay.
So why don't I first entertain a motion to accept the suspension of midterm examinations at the high school for the 2020-2021 school year.
I move that we suspend mid-year exams at the high school for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
Okay, so you need to do a roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Aye, sorry.
Janine?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0. And just for overkill, we'll do a motion to entertain a motion to push back the parent-teacher conferences at the high school by 1 week as well.
I move that we push back the parent-teacher conferences for the high school by 1 week.
Second.
Roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. That passes 5-0 as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. LaPratte.
Mr. Buckley, do we want to just, I mean, it's not on the agenda as a calendar change vote, but do we just want to take a vote on the December changes so that we can then just broadcast that out? I mean, we had approved already the what's really changing are the elementary conferences and the PD day being moved.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think it's a clarification more than anything because
yeah,
we did approve already remote on the days before December. So
right.
Already now is just clarifying that they will be the parent-teacher conference days and professional development. So
right.
it's not changing who's going to be in school or anything like that. We already did that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll entertain a motion for those changes as well. Chris, you're up again.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I just I don't have them in front of me to enunciate them all. I move that we adopt the changes to the conferences that Dr. Daly just mentioned.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Dr. Daly. Thank you, Mr. LaPratte. And we're going to go back up to Sophia. Sophia is going to talk a little bit about a potential new program, a new club. So, Sophia, I turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to present my screen.
Wonderful.
All right. You can see it, right?
You can.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So first, I just want to give a little overview about myself, talk about myself a little bit. So I actually did prepare this in sign language because I have been doing a little bit of research on it. So hello. You can see my hands, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is being shown. Yep.
Okay. My name is Sophia. I am a senior at NRHS. I play tennis and volleyball. I'm in DECA. Red Cross, yearbook, and NHS. So then I just want to talk a little bit about how I developed my passion for sign language. So I was with my friend Grace Gorman a couple of weeks ago when we were talking, and we were on YouTube, and a video came up about the alphabet for sign language, and we were just like, we should learn it, because I have been thinking about it a lot in the past, but I never really thought to like actually pursue it as a language. And then I watched that video, and then eventually I started watching more about the greetings and farewells. So then we were thinking that we should make it a club at the school, because you know there's not a class for it. It's not in the world language program. So the first thing that we'd be able to do is start a club. So then we reached out to Mr. Hain, and here we are. So first I'll just give an overview. So this is the write-up that I composed, just a description about the club. So American Sign Language is an introductory club designed to teach students basic signing skills, as well as the culture and history of the deaf community. Members will be expected to participate in identifying finger-spelled words and key phrases and questions pertaining to greetings, farewells, and conversations. Members will learn to maintain a conversation in American Sign Language, as well as raise money to donate to many organizations supporting the deaf community. We will also use our donations to fund the necessary supplies and resources to grow our education. We intend to invite guest speakers from the deaf community to join our discussion and help us expand our knowledge. So what we hope to accomplish as a club. So my first point is that I don't want this to just run as a club for just this year, obviously. So I am a senior, so I'm obviously going to be graduating in May. But in the future, you know, I want it to run next year. Like, I can use the members of the club this year to help me make it run next year, as well as Miss St. Arnaud, who's my sponsor or my mentor for it. And I also just really think it's important that we raise more awareness about sign language in the deaf community, especially to North Reading, because there are a lot of verbally impaired students and also just like citizens of North Reading who would really enjoy having a club here. And also, I think it's important not only for me, but for members of the club to teach leadership, commitment, and dedication. Because, so an example for this would be, since there is already Spanish and French classes at the school, students are required to take that for, I believe, the first 2 years, so freshman and sophomore years. But I have done my Spanish class up until senior year, so I'm in my 5th year. But I think it's really important that since it's required for students to take those first 2 classes and actually make an education out of it, I feel like they have it embedded in their heads that, you know, like they need to learn it because they need to get a good grade, or they need to pass it because it's going to go on their transcript for colleges. But this way, it shows dedication to learning a new language, because the students are not forced to take this club. You know, they're volunteering because they want to learn, because they actually want to expand their knowledge. So it really shows who wants to learn and who's just there because they have to be. So how the club will run. So a couple of days ago, I think it was on Monday, I sent out a Google form to the freshmen, to the class officers of each grade. And they then sent out a Google form to their class group me. So then I got a lot of responses about people who'd be interested. And right now I have 24 people who are already interested in the club. And that's just my first initial rough estimate. I have a lot more people who just haven't got around to emailing me yet or joining the Google Classroom. But among those participants, I'm going to get into this later, but one of them is actually fluent in American Sign Language. So that's going to be a great asset for us. And I think it's important that we're going to meet virtually because of the cohorts. So I'm thinking we start off every other week so that it's not too much of a force for especially seniors applying to college and juniors trying to get their work done, and just in general for the students to ease into the school year a little bit more. So how it's going to run is I would think that we would use the cafeteria because Mr. Hain mentioned that it's a good place for clubs to meet because the desks are already 6 feet apart. And that way I was thinking that they would run on Thursdays because I'm in cohort B, so I'm in school on Thursdays, so that I would be able to be there on the Google Meet while cohort A or cohort D or even cohort B, if they're not there, they'll be able to join remotely. And so this is a really great resource. Let me go into it. So I researched about some courses that we could take online, and I found Sign Language 101. So there are free videos here. So we'll scroll down and there's ABCs and colors and pronouns, antonyms and common phrases, all of these videos. And it actually like takes you through a 10-week course. And there's also, if I go to start lesson 1, there is a course that costs $25 that includes like 700 vocabulary and longer videos. So that would be something to think about, but that also comes with a lot of fundraising. So I'm going to get into that though. Oh, oops. So we have 2 options: to buy the guided course or to sign up for the free courses, which I would think that the free courses would be our best bet right now, considering we won't be able to fundraise. And then maybe in the future, we'd be able to buy textbooks for the club members because say a club member is really interested in the club and they don't just want to limit themselves to just the meetings every other week or every week. So they will want to take their textbooks home, you know, learn independently. So that'd be a good option for them. And then fundraising. So with COVID, our fundraising is obviously very restricted because in a normal school year, we'd be able to do bake sales and special holiday sales and stuff like that. But with the regulations, we're obviously not able to do that this year. So I would say that this year we would just start off of $0 because that's obviously very possible for us. We do our free courses online. We don't do textbooks. And we just maybe don't do donations just for a little while we get off the ground. And then it's also an option for us to just collect donations. So there is a really great organization that I was researching, the American Society for Deaf Children. So I'm sure that there would be a lot of students who would be willing to just donate like out of pocket. I know I would. So we could set up kind of like the pennies that we would do like last year, I'm pretty sure. So it would be something like that where we just collect donations and then all the proceeds would go to organizations. Guest speakers. So this is a very important aspect of for the club to me. So I think that it's really important that we have like a tangible source from someone that actually knows American Sign Language or who's in the deaf community, knows someone from the deaf community. So it's my hope that we'd be able to have them come in like maybe 2 to 3 times a year. So I already reached out to, I think, 2 people so far. So my one of my teachers, Mrs. Pierce, she I was talking to her about the club and she said that she had a deaf friend who'd be really willing to come and help us, you know, learn more about the community and tell us about her story. So she's definitely an option. And then one of the girls who emailed me about her interest in the club when I sent out the Google form, she actually expressed to me that I believe it's her mom and her dad, they both are deaf. So she speaks American Sign Language in her day-to-day life. So she knows it fluently. So she's going to be a great aspect of the club. She's going to be able to help us with, you know, confusing words, stuff that we don't know. And also she said that her mom would be willing to come in and talk to us. So that's really great. And if they're not comfortable, you know, coming in, or if it's not allowed, then they'd be able to join us remotely because we'd be doing it off of Google Meet anyways. And, you know, they just tell us their story, how being deaf has impacted them, and some new phrases that we might not seem to like think to learn in the courses or that might not be taught to us. And I added a note that translation might be necessary for this because they might be verbally impaired, so they might not be able to actually speak English while they're doing their sign language. So Catherine would come in clutch here, and she would be able to translate for us. So the future of American Sign Language. So we are proposing this club in hopes of having it run years and years ahead of us. As I said before, I want to be able to leave my mark at North Reading and, you know, go off with a bang and actually have a legacy here, because now that I'm a senior, I'm going to be graduating soon, and I just want to be able to leave strongly. So I feel like this is the perfect way to do it, because it's going to add something really great to the curriculum, really great to the community. So as I mentioned, next year, new officers would be elected, and we'd be doing this. So me and probably Miss St. Arnell, we'd discuss, you know, who's participating the most, who's most intrigued in the club, and then we'd go off of that and maybe do a vote about who would be the officers for next year. And I also have some ideas about maybe getting some officers for this year along with me. So I'd be the president, and then I might have, you know, a vice president to help me with some of the meetings, and then treasurer for like fundraising and stuff like that. And then I think that it was either Miss St. Arnell or Mr. Hain, but they mentioned to me that there is a middle school class for American Sign Language, but I don't think it's official. But that would give us a lot more interest, because they would be able to, you know, the middle schoolers would come in their freshman year and be like, oh, I already took this class and I would be really interested in joining the club. So it would give us a lot more, you know, members, and they'd be able to tell their friends. So it'd give us a lot more. And yeah, that's all I have. So questions?
Excellent presentation, Sophia.
That was beautiful.
Very nice.
Questions. Mr. Chris, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I'll echo what everyone just said. That was I've been in meetings where people have pitched full classes before that weren't as well thought out as this.
Thank you.
Really excellent. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any questions. I just think you did an incredible job, and I think that it's a laudable idea that in your senior year, instead of thinking about what it's going to be like to leave, you're thinking about what you can leave behind. And,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's inspirational, and I hope that this is just a huge success.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, and there's some nice comments coming in. I'll read as well. Mrs. Capizzuto said, "Bravo, Sophia, for the effort. I recommend you reach out to the SEAM Collaborative, which has 3 classrooms in the hood for the hearing impaired and our younger grades. These children will be coming up and would benefit from this program, which I think is a great idea." Another one said, "Awesome job. Excited to be part of this project." Do other people have comments? Mr. LaPrette.
Thank you. Sophia, tremendous, really nicely done. What I think, assuming that as this meeting proceeds the way we hope it will, we'll talk. So one of the things, as the principal, I have access to some funds through the rebate account. And those are funds that are reserved specifically for student projects and direct student enhancement programs.
Okay.
And I think we should talk. Let's keep our fingers crossed here with respect to moving forward, and we'll catch up.
Excellent. And I will add a couple of things. I know my son, who's in 6th grade, he has a teacher who I believe is hearing impaired. And so there might be a teacher in the middle school that might be interested. I would love to see, this expand beyond. I'd love, some community aspect of it, but also middle school. I think this would be a great, thing to start in middle school, because with any language, it takes a long time to learn, and if you're only doing this as a club once a week, I think it would be great if you start with the high school and then maybe even expand it beyond. And I was actually just going to say something kind of like Mr. LaPrette, where I think it's a really meaningful opportunity, and I would hate for funding to stop it from starting.
Yeah.
Like if you think it's $25 or whatever, I would say I would personally help, to fund that. So like when you talk to Mr. LaPrette, if there's you know, there's some funding needed, please, you know, feel free to reach out to me. I think it's a meaningful, you know, a meaningful project to do and to get off and running. And I think clubs probably have, you know, funding eventually, but if you're a new club,
Yeah.
you know, I'd be happy to help support this personally as well, because I think it's very meaningful. So, this is Adriano.
Hi. I'm on the phone and the anyway, Leanne, I'm sorry, I'm calling you your sister's name.
Oh my
Sorry,
gosh.
Sophia. I actually had a hearing impaired friend when I was younger, and her mom taught me how to ask if she wanted to sleep at my house, which was really fun. And I didn't speak of, you know, or hand sign any other language than that, but we just ran around and had a great time. So this is really a really nice idea. Very proud of you for thinking about it and taking the initiative and you know, going forward. So I would like to also, you know, offer, if you need any help financially, just ring the doorbell and let me know.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Buckley?
Yes, Dr. Daly.
So, Sophia, fantastic presentation. We were very, very excited to hear that tonight. It was very well done, as others have mentioned. I see Ms. St. Arnaud's on the line as well. And if I'm not mistaken, I think ASL can be a language that you could do the seal of biliteracy. You know, so if this is something that you started at an early enough level, you could be proficient. I don't know if Ms. St. Arnaud can acknowledge that.
Sure, yeah, thanks. So Sophia, I mean, I have to publicly say how happy I am to be part of this project. And, you know, I'm so glad you brought me in. So this American Sign Language, just to clarify, is a world language. American Sign Language is not an interpretation of English or a translation of English or something like that. It is its own language. And the Seal of Biliteracy is available to students who learn American Sign Language. I'm so proud of Sophia as well for recognizing that language leads with culture. Several times in her presentation, she mentioned that just learning the signs is really not learning or understanding a language. Understanding the people who communicate in this language is really the key to all languages. And I personally, I have a passion for student leadership. I have a passion for promoting interculturality and certainly for multilingualism as well. And so this is a really exciting project. And, you know, I think right now ASL is really having a moment during COVID, as we all turn on the TV and watch the governor or the mayor speak. And usually there's, you know, someone signing next to them, you know, in the press or whatnot. There's been a lot of attention put on American Sign Language. And I love how Sophia is taking this moment and making it a movement, something that we can really, you know, take beyond, you know, what we see with Governor Baker and, you know, Mayor Walsh and whatnot on TV. So, yeah, so this is really great. And I am, for those of you who don't know me, I am the curriculum coordinator of world languages. And so someday, if this grows to be more than a club, if somehow this grows into course offerings, you know, that's of course something that I'm very happy to be part of.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy.
Excellent. Mr. LaPrette, I see your hand up still.
Thank you. I just was going to, I wanted to say what I didn't say when I was initially thanking Sophia for her presentation is that, I mean, as the principal, you know, I want to think about the breadth of my role and the importance of it. But when we have an opportunity to expand the community and recognize that as much as we think we might be doing on reaching out to people and, you know, and celebrating the success that we've had as our own community, when we can expand that, which is, I think, exactly what this is, it's the best of what we can do. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you again, Sophia.
Thank you.
So clearly a lot of opposition here. Mr. Hain.
Unmuted. I just wanted to, you know, working with Sophia at the start of this project, it was great to see the passion that she had for this. And I think this is something that, you know, as a person that gets to work with a lot of kids every day, to see someone who has a passion and a fire lit and be able to pursue that. There were some other kids that were interested in it, but for different reasons, they kind of backed out of that. But so it was really nice to see Sophia grow already in that role of, I'm passionate about this, I want to make this happen. And she's really, really excelled at putting this presentation together and having a vision for how this could happen. I'm really proud of her. This is, I think, something to see kids want to learn something for the sake of learning it and applying it for the community is really what learning's all about. So I was so impressed with that, and I'm excited for this to get off the ground. And it was great to see her work that hard with that, and with the help of Ms. St. Arnaud. So it was really terrific. Nice job, Sophia.
Thank you. I just want to add to that really quickly. So I wanted to talk about the interest that I had with the students who reached out to me about their interest in the club. So I had multiple students reach out to me saying, thank you so much for making this club a part of North Reading, because Catherine, the one who her parents are deaf, she was saying how she wanted to start the club for so long, but she didn't know how to, or she didn't know where to start. So basically she was just expressing her gratitude that I was actually able to start it, or present it. So basically I just am saying that there is interest in every student as much as my passion is for American Sign Language, but I'm just presenting it and they're just not showing it as much, but eventually we'll all be able to show it through the club.
Excellent. Great job. Great job. Okay. So again, I have a feeling how this is going to go, but I would like to entertain a motion to approve American Sign Language Club as a high school club starting this year.
Scott, I will move to that we vote to approve the American Sign Language Club as a club to start this year after such a wonderful presentation.
I second.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Chris. He beat you in there. So we'll do a roll call vote. Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Sophia.
Thank you.
Mr. Burton, let me just say too, I just want to thank all the students as well as the advisors and Mr. Hain and Mr. LaPrette. This is my first time going through this process. Typically, clubs are presented and approved in May for the following year, but due to the situation last spring, obviously we made some different decisions, and so we've been trying to pull everything together this fall. So there's a few other student ideas and clubs that we hope to be able to present at our next meeting as well. So
excellent. Okay, moving on. Mr. Hain, I assume you don't have your hand up still, right? Nothing else? Thank you. Mr. Johnson, I believe we have now for a winter sports update.
Ooh.
I turn it over to you, Mr. Johnson.
Sophia, you're a tough act to follow. Oh my gosh, I'm nervous. But Dr. Dale, you're going to show the program on the screen. Can you share that?
it's up there. Yep.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, I remember talking about fall sports, trying to get that going, and I have to say the kids did a fantastic job in the fall, you know, on really the how important it was. And obviously winter sports starting up, it's been a slow process, to be honest with you. I was really hoping we'd be able to present this sooner, but you know, the MIA was pretty much waiting for the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. You can go to the second slide. To really lead in this, and from those, some of their requirements that they were having for this, the MIA acted on it kind of late, and then everything went down to the specific sport committees, which have met as recently as, you know, yesterday and the day before yesterday, to try and get some of the hockey and the basketball things ironed out. So it's been an ongoing process, and you can go to the next slide. Traditionally, winter sports start the Monday after Thanksgiving. And as we all know, we're not having a Thanksgiving Day football game this year, but traditionally what they've done is there are no winter tournaments by the MIA, just like there were no fall tournaments. So there's a definite start date and a definite end date. We know it's going to end on February 21st, and it looks like it's going to be more like December 14th is when the MIA is going to allow you to begin winter sports. I think they all wanted that little bit of time after the holidays to see how that affected your community without the athletics starting up right away. So the sports that they have approved for the winter time are, boys and girls basketball, boys and girls hockey, boys and girls swimming, and gymnastics. Cheering and boys and girls indoor track have been bumped to different seasons.
Wrestling as well, Mr.
And wrestling as well, correct. Although it looks like wrestling, might just be kind of a club sport, for, if it doesn't happen in the wintertime. I don't really know. I don't have a lot of confidence in wrestling even happening. But I think the indoor track piece of that is going to get bumped to the wedge season, which will be the season after this, which will start on February 22nd. So this is the timeline for the traditional winter sport season right now, and also the sports that they're going to allow during it. You go next. Yeah. Gone over a little bit already. What we're looking to do is, again, just Cape Ann League schedules. Usually the winter season is a little bit more in terms of, tends to be a lot of non-leaguers. There's games. There's a lot of times where you're playing in Christmas tournaments or February tournaments, and there's a lot of inter-league play. That's not going to happen, just like in the fall. It's going to be strictly a Cape Ann League schedule, which will begin the beginning of January. So from mid-December to the end of December will be the tryouts and practices. And when you come back that first week, to 5 or 6 days in January is when the games will start. 10 to 11 games, which, it doesn't sound like a lot when you look at how many games are usually played. But I can tell you, in the fall, that really did seem like a lot. And I think we're playing every team in the league once. So it's a real flavor for who is the real league champion. And I think there's a competition all the way through for everybody. There's a lot of sport modifications, everything from wearing a mask while you're playing hockey and basketball to the restrictions you have in terms of how close you can get to the opponent at certain times during the contest, things like that. So those are all coming out by the MIA specific sport committees. And I think there's even going to be some more modifications before December 14th. Okay. There are some things we've talked about from the AD point of view. And this was what we started with in the fall, whereas there were no spectators or fans allowed. And I know that wasn't very popular. And then we did eventually have a sign up where parents of the players in the game were allowed to sign up and show up. But those were outdoor events. I really think that right now we're looking at no spectators and no fans allowed, and that could possibly be for the duration of the season. I know we just installed a huddle camera in our gymnasium, so parents will be able to stream the games with their own account. And there's a lot of things like, locker room availability, restroom availability. In the fall, students had to come dressed for practices and games when they were in school. And that's fine for soccer and cross country and things like that. But, it's not like you're going to have kids, with their hockey gear, walking through school all day. So there are some protocols that we might have to, allow in terms of kids being able to go home before they come back to the bus to change. There is a thing where, when you are a remote student, you need to get yourself after school to the bus, to the bus time, that are picked up on campus. So, that's something that games are starting a little bit later in the fall, and they'll start a little bit later in the spring. We talked a little bit about with basketball, it's going to be very difficult to play the traditional, it's not called freshman anymore, it's called JV2, but, the way you used to do a JV2 game, then a JV1 game, and then a varsity game in our gym from 4, 5:30, and 7 o'clock. It looks like we're only going to be able to 2 levels on those days. We're going to have to move the JV1 games to a different day because now you also have the 9:30 curfew that you have to get kids back to their respective homes by that time. So we're probably looking like about a 4 and a 6 o'clock start times for basketball. The athletic trainer availability, we're going to have some protocols on that for the room in terms of it's not a big room, and sometimes it can get really busy in there. During the fall, we had one of the locker rooms down on the turf that was designated just for Rachel Hanna and her, place to be down there with Harmeling PT. So we're going to have to do a little bit of, spacing and distancing with that for this. In terms of mass social distancing, that's all a piece of it. And when we are, when we're hosting here, a lot of times in the district, it's the home team, decisions on how events are going to be run. We know we can do it North Reading, but if we go to Pentucket or Newburyport, they might have a different way of doing it. But like I said, I think the biggest thing on this slide right now is that first one, no spectators or fans allowed. And that's something that we'll work out as we go along. Let me see. I kind of went over a lot of these things already. The spectators, the live streaming, and I know some of the other I know a lot. I think just about every team in the Cape Ann League is going to have a way to stream a game in their gymnasium. Currently, right now, kids are signing up on Family ID for the sports that I just mentioned, and we are not asking for any user fees to be paid at this time. We'll wait until we really know that we're starting December 14th, and then we've always gotten the money in, so I'm really not concerned about that for some of the kids. But by the time we get the games going and the uniforms, we'll have all that in. I know there was a little bit of a sliding scale that Mike Conley and I worked on a little bit for the fall about if a season gets cut short, coaches' pay would be cut a little bit, and a little bit about even if the season got cut down for whatever reason, whether it's a North Reading decision or a Massachusetts decision, whether there's some type of stipend refunds, but that's language we're working on right now. And this is another thing too, the amount of kids that you can have on a bus, which will add a little bit to the expense of the winter season, because we used to have the boys and girls basketball teams traveling together. Now we'd have to have a separate bus for each one of them. We won't be able to use the new van this winter for the JV 2 level basketball teams that used to travel 14 with a driver. Now we'll have to get a bus for that as well. But that's just something we're going to have to deal with just to have the opportunity for the kids. And as I said, there's things coming out daily from the MIAA in terms of sport modifications and things like that, whether it's Joe Casey with boys basketball or Bob Romeo with girls basketball, Brian McAuliffe with hockey, Sue Hunter with swimming, all these things. There's just a lot of modifications and changes that are going to be evolving even over the next couple of weeks until we start up on December 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. So do we have questions or concerns or thoughts from anybody? Again, please raise your hand. I will start off, Mr. Johnson, because I know the one question, as you commented, was the spectators. And I know last time when we talked about the fall, it was said that it was a Cape Ann League rule, but then everything changed after a 14-day moratorium. So when we're talking about spectators, is it the same sort of thing? Have all Cape Ann League teams agreed? Is it a Cape Ann League rule, or is it just in practice most teams are adopting no spectator policies?
We had an athletic directors meeting on Wednesday, and I think a lot of athletic directors were speaking for their principals after a dialogue that they had, and some are very adamant about not wanting spectators in their building. We have it right now where parents aren't allowed in our building. Then all of a sudden, you can't come and drop, off something in school, but then you can, but wait till 4 o'clock and then you come see a basketball game. So I think we might have to be a little consistent with that. And it's not going to be a popular decision. But I think it's something that our focus right now, my focus right now, is how do we get athletics for the kids? Everything else is something we work out as we go along.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, and the challenging part also in our town is that we open the schools up only for town meetings. That's what we've had town meetings live in person, but yet we haven't had parents in there at all either. But yeah, that's the one question. And then for the live streaming, I know you mentioned that you installed the camera. Is there any discussion about? I mean, will that be something that anybody can watch? It will be disseminated to everybody. Will it be something that, have you thought about talking to NORCAM? Is it a quality of camera that could actually be streamed on NORCAM or not?
Possibly, and I need a little education myself on that. It's actually a huddle camera, and what you do is you go in and you set up your own huddle account. Then you're when the contests are happening, you can allow access. It's not something where during the day somebody can just put on the huddle camera and just watch every at 9 o'clock in the morning or noon or whatever. It's like specific times that the games are on is when they're allowed to have access, and every parent or anybody would just have their own account that they would watch on the screen like we're on right now.
Mr. Johnson, are the games recorded that they can get them on demand after they stream?
That's a very good question, and I'm going to say I believe so. I know my huddle gurus, Chuck Campobasso and Eddie Blum are kind of the guys who I've been kind of talking to. And like I said, they just installed the camera today. There are so many applications to this that I think I'd have to say probably, to be honest with you. It's not, you don't have to watch it live. I think it's something where you can go in and watch it later. So yes.
Great.
Any other comments or questions from the committee, from anybody that's listening in at home?
Mr. Buckley?
Yes, Dr. Daly.
Dr. Daly, I'll just say that, one thing about town meeting is that, the buildings were thoroughly cleaned afterwards with a separate cleaning crew. And that's like, something we'd have to keep in mind as well. That would make it a little bit different. So, I think I will just say similar to the fall, things can evolve. We'll keep an eye to it. But right now, I think it's, being cautious with this. We did check with, our teachers unions as well about that. Right now our building's trying to keep we're bringing everything inside, and so it's just very different. Even doing town meeting in the summer or in June when you're able to have all your windows open all day and air everything out. I mean, it's very different now, and I think folks, I'm hopeful that folks will understand that, and I'm very glad that we're doing the live streaming, and we'll have that installed, and we'll be able to practice that a little bit before the season starts. So that'll be good as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great, Mr. McGowan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buckley, and thank you, Mr. Johnson. I know, like with everything else this year, all this takes a lot of extra work, and on your part and the coach's part, and Mr. LaPrette and everybody else. So I appreciate that. I think that the focus, that sending a clear message about spectators and not having the same hopes as of something happening like it did happen in the fall. And again, if it does, that's great. But I think setting those expectations pretty strongly is important so that people don't feel like they can expect a relaxing of the rules. Again, if we're able to, that's great. But it's obviously a different situation. But otherwise, I'm glad that the focus is on getting the kids some playing time. So thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments? If not, my agenda says you would like a vote to presumably approve the moving forward with the winter sports in North Reading.
Yeah.
I move that the committee vote to approve the plan as described by Mr. Johnson for winter sports in North Reading.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Rich.
Aye.
Diana.
Aye.
Janine.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay. And by the way, Sophia and Gianna, feel free to drop off if you get bored at any point in time. So don't feel you are obligated to stay. But we are honored to have I think Mrs. Sacco is here. Gina Sacco is here, and you can't see everybody. Is Mrs. Conant here as well?
I am here, Scott. Hi.
Hi, Mrs. Conant. And so I apologize because I'm the reason you had to be here, because I opened my big mouth as usual in a meeting and asked some questions. But appreciate that you are here to present about student services in COVID.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. Before I get started, I just want to say thank you to the school committee members and also to Patrick and Michael Connolly for supporting the recommendation to expand Gina Sacco's role this year. Some of you may not know that last year she was the coordinator of elementary special education. And now this year, she has moved into a newly expanded role as my assistant director of special education. So that's been just a tremendous asset to our department. And in this year of COVID, this was just, the timing couldn't have been better. So thank you, Gina, for all you do. And I just wanted to take a moment to recognize you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. I'm just going to shut off my camera while I present, and then I'll pop back on for questions.
Did you turn off your microphone as well?
It might have frozen when she was starting to present.
You need me to share the screen, I can do so as well.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me try this.
Just want to hit present.
Can you see that now?
Yeah, yep, it's coming up. It was coming up. Oh no, now it just left.
Cynthia, would you like me to do this for you? I can do it if it helps.
Sure. Why don't we do that, Patrick? Thank you.
Yeah, it'll just take me one moment to.
Yeah.
Where did it go?
Yeah, so Scott, I appreciate you asking the questions, because I think, we've talked a lot this year about the hybrid model and what is that. And so I think it will just be good for people to have an understanding of what special education is like in this new framework. So I think it will be helpful. So thank you for asking the questions and giving us the opportunity to come tonight.
One moment, I'll be right there. Should be coming up.
Yeah, and I know many members of the committee are interested in this as well. And we had a lot of discussions last year when we went to hybrid about the impact that hybrid would have on some students and the fear that the gap might be growing. And so
Sure.
It's great to kind of hear what you're seeing and what's being done. So thank you.
Yep. All right, Patrick. So if you want to just go ahead on to the next slide. Okay, so we just want to start by giving you the framework and answering the question, what does the provision of special education services look like in a hybrid model of instruction? So there are some things that we are required to do by the Department of Education. So we are required to provide services on the student's active IEP. So while we were in hybrid, some services might look different given the nature of being in person as well as being remote. So I talk about this all the time. So in my mind, this statement makes perfect sense to me, but I'm sure some of you might be thinking, what do you mean services might look different? So just to give you a good example of that, if there's a student that receives a service, say 4 times a week, well, they're only in person 3 times a week. So one of those services is going to happen virtually. So that's an example of how a service happens differently. So it's still the same service, it's the same amount of time, but that one point of contact looks different. So that's what we mean when we say services might look different. So we are required to inform parents in writing of how the services in the IEP are being delivered. So parents should be aware of how, when, and who is providing the services. So this written communication is referred to as the COVID-19 Special Education Learning Plan. So this is the communication that identifies when and how a service is being provided, if it is being provided differently. So it's a flexible plan to allow for any changes in the hybrid model, so that if all of a sudden something happens and we are fully remote, or something to that effect, liaisons can go in, update that plan, and send it back out to parents. So it's fluid. We can go back to it, we can revisit it, and we can continue to keep that communication going with the parents. So COVID-19 learning plans were provided to families earlier this school year. And I would just say, not all students would receive a COVID-19 learning plan. So, for example, there are some students for which the services look exactly the same. Pre-K would be a good example of that. But I think it's important that, we understand that the COVID-19 learning plan is not a change to the IEP. We don't change the IEP. We don't change the services, but services might look different. So that is what exactly that means. And that is how we communicate that out through that COVID-19 learning plan. Okay, Patrick, if you can go to the next slide. So this is just very straightforward. This was the guidance that was provided to us and provided to districts as we determined cohort C students. So students that were students that were prioritized for in-person learning. And basically the Department of Ed said, these are the students that you should prioritize. So as I've outlined in the chart, it's pre-K students, homeless students, students in foster care, students duly identified as English learners, students who primarily use aided communication, students with complex and significant needs. And that determination is actually a mathematical calculation that's determined by the IEP. It's a percentage of services that a student receives. So it's absolutely determined by the IEP. So you look on the IEP page, and that's how you find that designation. Other students that they also identified are students who cannot engage in remote learning due to their disability-related needs, or students that had two of the following three. So services are provided outside of the general education classroom, as opposed to, for example, a student that gets all push-in inclusion services. Providers are special education teachers and related service providers, and special education services constitute more than 75% of the student school day. So that was the information that was given to us by the Department of Ed, and sort of set the foundation for how we began to identify cohort C students. You can go on to the next slide, Patrick. So in my opinion, this is the most important slide in my presentation. It's important to me that everybody here has an understanding of this. So how do we support struggling students in this model? Because this is really what it's all about. How do we continue to ensure that our students, with unique learning needs, continue to make progress during this time? So for special education students who are struggling, the appropriate course of action is to reconvene the IEP team with the required members. During the meeting, the team would review the areas of concern and identify appropriate next steps. The decisions that are made here are individualized and tailored to meet the unique needs of the student. And I really, really want to emphasize that the decision-making is at the discretion of the IEP team. So I, as the director, can't just override this team process and say, this student is going to get A, B, and C. I can't do that. That's against the law, against the regulation. There is fidelity in terms of the team process. And it's my job to make sure that that team process and the fidelity associated with that stays intact. In situations where the team is unable to come to consensus, there are options provided by the Department of Ed to assist in facilitating dispute resolution and helping teams come to consensus. So a couple of those options are they will send out somebody to conduct a mediation, or they will send somebody out to attend a team meeting. Before we would take any of these steps, you know, our vision for the Student Services Department and Special Education has always been to build in layers so that there are multiple points of contact, so that when teams find themselves in a situation where they're struggling to come to consensus, we have in-district options available. So if a liaison chairs an annual review meeting and they can't come to consensus, she can consult with the elementary team chairperson as another person to kind of brainstorm. And, you know, that person might say, oh, have you considered some assessment? Okay. And that might be what helps move that team forward. And then it might be that an administrator might need to be involved. So they might contact the assistant director. So in this way, parents and teams have layers of support available to them, because the goal is always to reach consensus, to come to consensus to support the child. Patrick, you can move on to the next slide. So some other considerations that we are dealing with this year. So teams are required to assess if there is a need to provide the student with compensatory services as a result of the impact of the school closure. So again, these decisions are IEP team-based, and they would utilize data to compare and assess student progress at the time of the closure last spring to present day. So as a result of this data analysis, teams might determine it could be one of three things, or it could be a combination of these three, or it could be one of these and two other things. They might decide that a student needs to participate in some additional general education supports. So maybe they need to attend a lunch bunch or a group with a guidance counselor. They might decide that the student needs special education compensatory services. Or they might determine that as a result of the closure, they're seeing something new and there's a new area of suspected disability. So they're going to do updated assessments to explore that, which that might result in changes to the IEP. So it could be a combination of those things. It could be one or two of those things. And then again, IEP teams have the discretion to make decisions. So they might come up with another creative idea. It might include some parent training. But these are the decisions and the considerations that we have to make as it relates to compensatory services. Patrick, you can go on to the next one. So parent outreach. Parent outreach has been strongly emphasized by the Department of Education, and it makes perfect sense because since the closure, you know, parents have been working with their children, been on the front lines with them, have seen them, have watched, have, you know, observed the challenges, observed maybe areas of strength. If maybe, you know, being with them much more and seeing them, they're able to see, you know, sort of their areas of strengths and areas of growth. So talking with parents right now and getting their feedback around what did it look like in the spring? What are you seeing now? How is the transition going? Those are critical conversations that we need to be having. So we are doing a lot of parent outreach. So around the time that we sent out the COVID-19 learning plan, there was outreach that occurred then just to make sure to see if parents had any questions or concerns about that learning plan. And then once progress reports are issued, there'll be another contact outreach to the parents just to talk about, you know, what are you seeing? How do you feel your child is doing? This is what we're seeing based on a progress report. Are there other concerns that you have that you want to talk about? Do we need to reconvene the team? And I just want to say, again, this is really an amazing community, and parents have partnered with teams, have partnered with teachers, and really come together so that we can work together to make student-centered decisions. And, you know, we certainly recognize parents right now, you know, managing work, managing having a student home, working remotely, you know, some days going to school, other days, it's a lot. And then if you add on top of that, you know, a child with special education needs, there's a whole nother layer of communication that a parent has to engage in on top of everything else. So I just want to acknowledge that and say how much we appreciate, you know, that all the parents in the community have been so wonderful to work with and have partnered with us. And we're very lucky. So if you want to go on to the next one. So if we kind of take all of this and put it together and sort of say, you know, what does all this mean and what can we conclude from this and where are we going and what are we doing? You know, I think we have to say there's no substitute for in-person learning. So our model includes a combination of in-person services and remote IEP service delivery. We certainly have students who are continuing to reach expected levels of progress within this model, but at the same time, of course, we have students who are struggling to meet their IEP goals. And it's through the combination of parent outreach and following that team process that I described to you earlier, we're supporting students who are struggling and coming up with appropriate next steps. And again, those next steps might include parent training, increasing special education services, or completing updated assessments. This last point here is, again, something Gina and myself are monitoring very closely and doing a lot of check-ins with teachers, but really monitoring for educator burnout. If our teachers are burning out, they're not providing effective delivery of instruction. So it's definitely a priority for us as we move through the school year, and definitely working to make sure they have the support that they need. And then I always just like to remind parents and families, if you have specific questions about your child, it's always best to start with your building-based contacts. Those are the people that are most familiar with your child and have all the details. So talking with liaisons or talking with team chairs would be, you know, the place to start. If you have larger questions, procedural questions, please always feel free to reach out or to myself or to Gina. So if you have questions for me.
Thank you, Mrs. Conant. Raise your hand, please, if you guys have any questions. I would just start by saying thank you so much for coming. I mean, I think, I don't know, I've always been, you know, I try to be as open as I can about this. Like, I mean, I have kids that are on IEPs, and I really appreciate the work that goes in for the people that are helping our students that have special needs. I mean, I met Mrs. Sacco as part of the IEP meetings and, you know, at the little school, and, you know, I mean, Mrs. Conant, you've been impressive the whole time. I think it's I think North Reading has a lot of great people here, but I mean, I think our special education team is top notch here, and so we're very, very fortunate. Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
So one comment / question, like, and then one other comment, which actually might be for Mr. Connolly, just to kind of warn him here. But the first one is with regards to services, like one interesting thing, like my daughter gets speech, and I know she's doing speech remotely right now. And in one way, it's nice because she doesn't get pulled out of class anymore. And I'm just wondering how many of the services are being delivered remotely, and have you seen any sort of changes in that? Because it's sort of nice that usually she had to get pulled out of class for something, and now it's just on her remote days she's doing it, and so she's not pulled out of class at all.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think you would find that it varies from student to student. You know, for some students it might work better. For other students, it's really a struggle. You know, a lot of that depends upon where the child is at developmentally, what's the nature of the disability, their profile. But certainly, you know, I think as with anything, it's going to work for some, and then for others, it's going to be a struggle.
And then Sako, were you going to say
I
something?
was just going to add one of the things that I know that providers sit a lot through the closure back in the spring, but now as well as having those opportunities to work remotely with the students gave them a lot more opportunity to interact with families. So the connections with the parents and the understanding and the ability to ask questions sort of on the fly in the middle of a session, or can you tell me how you do this, why that's happening, how can I carry that over at home? So there was a strong sense of community, more so than there already is. We have fantastic families in this district, but if we were to look at one of the silver linings to all of this, I would say that during those remote sessions, it did provide opportunities for more interaction than we would normally have when the students are coming to school to receive the services.
Excellent point. And I'll get to Rich in 1 second. My funding question was, I expect that there's probably some additional, services that are being needed here or there, but do we know the funds that we have for COVID, these like one-time funds, are they able to be used for special education services as well? I presume yes, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so they can be structured in such a way that perhaps you're structuring them for stipends, for example, for somebody to provide compensatory services. Michael Connolly and I meet on an ongoing basis to kind of talk about what's changing, what am I seeing, what might we anticipate. And as you know, with special education, it's very difficult to predict. We could have a student move into our district tomorrow who has a residential placement on their IEP, and that's a cost that we didn't see coming and we couldn't plan for. But because Michael Connolly and I are in such ongoing communication, we're able to kind of, to the best that we can, kind of have an idea of, okay, I'm thinking this is where we're going to want to put the funds. We want to be thinking about compensatory services. We want to be thinking about these services that students might need, as we move through the year and into next year.
And then, Mr. Buckley, hi, this is Michael Conley. Thank you, Ms. Conant. So, and then to answer your question, so I think that we certainly could make them available through the COVID funding through some of our federal sources. If it can specifically be the result of a situation due to COVID that was unpredicted and unbudgeted, then it would be an acceptable, allowable expense.
Thank you very much. Mr. McGowan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thanks. So I was curious, were any of the students, did any parents have to make a choice to keep their children at home, basically in cohort D, that were, had previously been, obviously that would have been a terrible choice to have to make, but that had been receiving services?
I think that we had a couple of parents opt for cohort D, but of their own volition due to concerns around having their child in school, without saying too much.
Yep, understood.
Yeah, those were the circumstances under which, I did see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And the teams are continuing to work with families in those situations and offering any possible option for in-person service that families are comfortable with. So it really is student specific, but there's ongoing communication between whether families are coming to pick up materials, whether they're choosing to access some in-person services. It's really just dependent upon the comfort levels of the families, but the communication is consistent with families in cohort D as it would be with the students that are in person.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? Well, we very much appreciate you coming and updating us, and it's good to hear what's going on, and wish you all the best. Dr. Daly?
Thank you.
It's a wonderful presentation, and thank you so much for all that you both do and all the support that you give me. I'm so glad that Gina was able to be officially recognized tonight. That was a great presentation, Cynthia and Gina, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And for everybody here, it gets even less exciting going forward. We have policies now. So, and I actually have to step out for a second here, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McGowan to please sort of talk about the policies. Actually, are you on the? No, it's Chris and Janine. So actually, Janine or Chris, if you guys can kind of run us through the policies that we need to vote on tonight.
Janine, why don't you go ahead?
Sorry, I had to get to my unmuting. The policies that we were discussing last time was the policy set forth by the state. We're on this one first. Sorry. Is this the one, Patrick, that's rewritten?
This would be ABBA. Yep.
Okay. All right. So the state set forward one file called AC, and we did a first reading last meeting, and it basically replaces all of our non-discrimination and harassment, be it student or staff. So just a little bit of background. There's a lot of different policies that it's going to replace, but we're going to rename it ABBA in lieu of AC. I need to just get to everything. It's for lack of a better word, it's a blanket policy that covers non-discrimination and harassment of any kind, be it to a student or to a staff member. And through legal counsel, we found it best to change it from the AC to reflect better our policy lettering. So in discussion, we found that it was best to do the ABBA. And that's kind of the long and short of it.
And so are we also effectively eliminating those other policies that were basically repeats of the same policy? GAAA, yes. JCA, and JCAD?
Exactly, yes.
Correct. So all those documents are included here in the pack. So the old ABBA and GAAA. So I'm scrolling through them.
So what?
Yeah.
Yep.
JCAD.
So I wonder if, are you going to replace those other policies with just copies, or we're just going to eliminate those completely?
They will.
Yep.
I'm sorry, with copies? Is that what you said?
Well, yeah. So I guess just to restate what I said. So we're basically eliminating completely GAAA, JCA, and JCAD.
Correct. They'll remain in the policy manual with an asterisk next to them, I believe, is the way that we notate that. To preserve the history of their existence, but that, and this document at the bottom will note that it replaces all those documents as well. So there'll be a cross reference in that, I believe, is how it's been done.
So I guess my question is, and I'm not too concerned about it, but should we have a first reading of a motion on those three policies? We can definitely have a second reading on this, on the main policy, ABBA, which we will note that, you know, as amended and renamed as ABBA from AC is what we voted on last time.
Yes.
Do we need to? Yep. Go ahead.
Yes, we do. We need to make a motion to delete or remove the other ones.
The text of, yeah.
Yes, because it will be condensed under the ABBA.
So I would recommend that we do that for those three policies as a first reading that we can then tie out next time.
That sounds very good.
Do we do a first reading for a removal? I don't think that we would need to. I think it would just be a matter of, if ABBA is going to replace all of them, so you would need a motion to accept ABBA's new reading as a second reading, and then you'd need to make a motion to remove the GAA, JCA, and JCAD. Because we're not making a reading on them, we're just removing them because it's redundant.
I'm, if everyone feels strongly in that direction, that's fine too. I think if we're voting on, changing a parent conference night, then we probably should vote on, stick to the strict rules on changing policies, but that's just my opinion.
What do you mean by changing the policy? We're not. The ABBA is being.
We're effectively changing GAAA and JCA and JCAD by zeroing them out, if you will.
Why don't we have one motion for a first reading to accept and to delete? So we have a motion, a first reading to accept the one policy and to remove policies, A, B, and C.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the last meeting I was more concerned with the urgency of doing it that night as a first reading, but I feel it's more complete tonight. So if everyone's more comfortable doing this as a first reading, and then finalizing it next meeting, if that kind of appeases everyone, then that could work as well.
That's fine.
Rich and Janine, do you feel comfortable doing that together? Since the one is replacing the other, we do it as a first reading to accept one motion and to remove all as one, and to remove and to replace the other motions, or to remove them.
All right, Scott, I have two things. Yes, it's Janine, by the way. When we did those 200 things with then John Bernard, I don't believe that we did a reading to remove. It was just a removal.
I can't remember if we got rid of any though.
Yeah, we did.
We might have done a motion, but
yeah, but was it a motion to read it once and then the second time it was removed, or was it just a motion to simply remove?
Well, I don't even remember what we removed, so I don't think my memory on that one.
All right, and then the second thing is, I was going to get to it on the minutes, but when we did the motion to accept on the first reading, I had said that it was labeled as AC, but to be relabeled to comply with our current policy lettering. So I believe once that gets amended in the minutes, that we should be okay just to call it ABBA. We shouldn't have to do a first reading tonight and then a second reading again. Does that make sense?
Yes, but we're going to have to do a second reading of some of them. So I think maybe the easiest way to do this would be to do two motions, both as a first reading. One of them on each topic, which will have kind of a couple of components to it. So we're going to, accept one motion and remove some other motions on each topic. And we do one reading today and then a second reading next time.
All right. So then the motion that we made last meeting is redundant?
Yes.
Okay. So then I won't make her amend it. How's that?
I mean, I'm all for Cindy doing some work, so.
Well, she has a little bit of work to do. I found one other thing. So actually, yeah. So anyway. All right, cool.
So Janine, do you want to make the motions? Do you feel, do you want to make the motions now?
Yeah. Yeah. So first I'll make a motion to accept the non-discrimination and harassment, formerly known as AC, to be made into policy ABBA and replace the old ABBA policy.
I second.
Okay. Any comment or discussion on this one? Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0.
And
you.
this was the first reading. Did I state that?
And
I don't think I stated it, but anyway, as the first reading. All right. Following that, as a first reading, to eliminate the following policies: GAAA, JCA, and JCAD, as they are redundant towards the ABBA, and I believe is noted on the ABBA.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes, Dr. Daly.
Would you also want to eliminate the old ABBA?
Did we do that in the last one? No.
The way Janine phrased it was that we're rewriting, this is now ABBA.
Okay, so that was in that first motion, and then this motion is the other three. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Correct. If I was following along.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
I second the motion.
Okay. I usually follow along. I just can't say anyone's name. So we'll do a roll call vote again. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. We get to do the whole thing again next time.
Yay.
We get to do the whole thing again right now, essentially, because it's very similar. It's split into two, right? I don't know if Janine or Chris want to take this as well.
Chris, you want me to keep going, or you want to take this one?
You're on a roll, Janine.
I'm on a roll. All right. Following the ABBA policy, the procedure will also be needed to replace by two grievance procedures. The first one, this is more of an explanation and not yet the motion, so please bear with me. Just like ABBA had a -R, and as did the GAAA-R, JCA-R, and JCAD-R. The -R is the procedure that goes with it. The state has also sent the Title IX sexual harassment and grievance procedure and the civil rights grievance procedure, which is anything that has nothing to do with Title IX, any other kind of harassment. So we need to accept these as the procedure to the ABBA. Does that make sense?
Yes. Why don't you make a motion, Janine, and we'll just second it.
Okay, and then after that motion is done, then we'll need to make a motion to rescind or, eliminate the other letters with the -R. So I will make a motion for a first reading to accept, I'll go with the civil rights grievance procedure as ABBA, oh, am I right? ABBA-R-1?
We did, yeah, ABBA-R1 and -R2.
Okay, I thought we would do them separate.
Okay, yep.
Okay, so as a first reading for ABBA-R, which is the civil rights grievance procedure.
-R1, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, R1. Thank you for that clarification.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? Do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. And Janine, you're still on a roll.
All right. I make a motion to accept for first reading the Title IX sexual harassment grievance procedure to be named ABBA-R2.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0. Is that all of them?
Okay. Yeah, got one more to do.
Oh, yes, one more.
Yes. I make a motion to eliminate the following policies. GAA, as a first reading, sorry. GAAA-R, JCA-R, and JCAD-R, as they are redundant to the ABBA R1 and ABBA R2.
I second.
Any discussion on this one? And we did the other ones that are listed on here already. They were the last ones. They were the other three we did, correct?
Well, well, no, I think we still have to do ABBA-R, correct?
Oh, yes, sorry. Good point. Well, no, because,
that's the one that those two are replacing that one, and then we're all doing BAA, JCA. The last two that are on here, something we'll take up at a later time. There's two others as well, but we're going to just delay those a little bit.
Yes, I will then add in, sorry about that. I forgot about, to add in the ABBA-R as well.
So we amend the motion. Chris, do you second the amended motion?
There wasn't a second, so I just corrected my motion to include the ABBA-R.
I second the current motion.
Correct. Okay. And we will take a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. 5-0. Thank you.
Mr. Buckley?
Yes.
There was a recommendation from legal counsel that these that we also adopt the the procedures, which are the R's, to be reviewed by the superintendent, and those they can be updated without having to go to full reading. If I need to update them to change, there's a lot of details in the procedures about the names, email addresses of the people who are in the various roles, and so the recommendation is to have the superintendent be able to review and revise these procedures. These are not actually policies, they're procedures. And they don't need to go through the full process of first and second readings, is my understanding. Janine?
Correct.
It's the same way?
Yes.
I believe that's been a practice in the past, hasn't it?
It has been, but if you read the fourth paragraph of the non-discrimination and harassment, which is now the new ABBA, it states the superintendent shall adopt and publish one or more grievance procedures for addressing the reports and discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, blah, 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 of the policy. So in the policy itself, it's stating that the superintendent is the one that has to do it.
So if we just accepted that policy, which says that that's what needs to be done, do we need a second motion on this then?
No, it's just in the wording of the policy. And I know that in the past that when there is a change on a procedure, that it is usually it's come across the school committee, but only if it's like a large change. If it's just a name change because of the employee has changed, then I think it was just a revised, and it was noted that it was revised on that day, on such a day.
Yeah, I would suggest that I don't know that they're always even updated that way. When changes are made to dates or to names, I don't know that those are always updated that way. I think that you may have done this when you updated every single policy in the thing where you read them all, but I don't think when the procedures are routinely updated, they get brought forth. I don't think that happens.
Just to clarify, I'm saying that I'm perfectly fine. I don't think we need to take a vote on this. You're perfectly free to, especially since it is part of this policy, that you can do that now.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because I just, especially these now, they're so complicated. It's more than just naming the Title IX coordinator. Now you're naming basically every role. So every time anything changes, including, quite honestly, the principal announcement, I have to go in and change it as soon as I do that. So this is challenging. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's clear in there, and I think, I mean, end of the day, when we're not making substantive changes, when we're changing names out, or I mean, even with the law, I mean, most of the time we reference the laws, and so if the laws change, I would say many of them automatically change because the reference is to the same law if the law gets amended. And usually when a law is amended, there's just small things that are added. You know, particular classes may be adjusted. So yeah, I think we're fine since it's in the policy already, that it gives Dr. Daly the power.
No, thank you very much. This is my first time to this as superintendent, so I just wanted to make sure it was clear. So thank you.
Okay, I probably should have brought the next topic up before this, but the Batchelder principal update, because I do know there's some parents still on here. Dr. Daly, would you like to give an update on the Batchelder principal search, or the interim principal search?
Thank you so much. I would like to just thank our committee. We had a wonderful committee. Diana Boutwell was a member of that committee. We had 2 parent representatives. We had Miss Buston from the CPAC. We also had Miss Fleming, who's a paraprofessional, who's also a parent. We had Carrie Eichmann, who's a parent at the Batchelder School. Miss Caroline Kane and Miss Lori Johnson, who were teachers. And we also had Dr. Daniel Downs, Director of Digital Learning, Christine Molly, who's the principal. And it was an incredible group of folks that came together to review the questions. We interviewed 3 folks on Monday. And at this time, I'm happy to put forward the name of Mr. Michael Maloney, who's the assistant principal at the middle school, as the interim principal for the Batchelder School. And so we're very excited for Mr. Maloney. He did a wonderful job. He's worked in this district for over 10 years, and he's absolutely earned the respect of all of the staff of the middle school, the parents and families of the middle school, as well as the administration. He's done much more than just the middle school. He's also been very involved, and I'm sure he's presented with you over the years for school safety. He's really taken the lead on the school safety team, the district safety, and the ALICE program, and presented to students of all ages the ALICE safety program at all schools. So he's a familiar face in the Batchelder School, and we think it's a great opportunity for him to be able to experience leadership as a new level. He's been an assistant for many years, for 10 years, but he is now ready to be a principal. And to do that in an interim way with the veteran principal like Mr. Colleen not too far away, I think is a great opportunity for growth for Mr. Maloney. And so, as I said to the committee, it's, you know, no matter what happens, we will certainly do a full search in the spring. I think that is the best interest of the school and the district and Mr. Maloney as well. But this is a great opportunity, and he would be eligible to apply for the full position in the spring if he's so interested. And so I want to congratulate him, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Excellent. Congratulations to Mr. Maloney. My only question would be, well, so every time one position gets filled, we have another vacancy. So can you talk a little bit about the vacancy at the middle school now?
Absolutely. And so I've been working closely with Dr. O'Connell on this, and she absolutely supports this decision. But of course, it's bittersweet. She's losing a partner that she's worked so closely with for a decade, and also it's not ideal timing, right, to do this in the middle of a year, and especially this year where it's very challenging. But I have given her all assurances that the transition will be smooth. Mr. Colleen and I will continue to work in, I'll continue to do assistant superintendent, which will allow Mr. Colleen to do Batchelder things while Mr. Maloney transitions, while Kathy posts for his replacement. And that, we're ready to go with the posting tomorrow. We've already met today. And we are hopeful that, Mr. Maloney will be official on December 1st, and he'll be able to be present at the Batchelder and get to meet everyone. But we will not fully transition out of his middle school role until we've comfortably filled in all of the needs elsewhere. So we're very, we've been doing this with Mr. Colleen for several months, and we'll continue that for a little bit longer to make sure that all the supports are in place.
Excellent. I don't know if Ms. Boutwell has any comments or thoughts on it as well.
No, I think the process went smoothly, and I think it's great that Michael Maloney is going to be stepping into this role, and we're excited about that. And obviously, huge shoes to fill, but I know he'll be successful, and it's great to have somebody within the district moving into the role.
And to be clear, so for you said that there was 3 people that interviewed. Were they both internal and external? There was another internal candidate, and there was another external candidate. The internal candidate is currently a teacher that's aspiring administrator, and the external candidate was a current. He'd been a principal for many years. So we saw a nice range of experience there, and up and comer, and internals and external, and we felt that we had a good pool to look at to determine what was the best fit for this interim role. Good. Now, just to point out that we did look externally as well. Then we did.
I just want to congratulate Mr. Maloney. It's a great choice. I'm excited that he's going into this role. And even though he got my son in trouble the first year my son was in middle school, I have never held that against him. So I'm really glad that he's going into this role. And I think it was a great choice for everyone. Great. And or maybe he didn't get my son in trouble. Maybe I said that wrong. Maybe my son got in trouble, but you know, it just depends on how you look at it.
And I was just going to say, I didn't specifically tell Mr. Maloney to join us tonight, but I will certainly bring him to the next meeting to introduce him. And he's going to sharing of the news with the community probably later this evening to share it with the middle school, because at this point, you know, we didn't name finalists, so it wasn't even very clear that he was even moving for this role, being an interim. So,
okay, Mrs. Imbriano.
Is my mic still on?
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Cool. This is for Patrick. Is he's the interim, right?
Correct.
Now, will he have to reapply for the permanent position?
He would, yeah. We've made that part of the process, and I think it's quite honestly similar to the process I went through. I think it's a healthy process to look through that. You know, certainly if he's successful as the interim, that will certainly be helpful. But I think, you know, so much could be different in the spring. I think it's important for all of us to you know, to go through that process together. So.
Okay, we haven't learned our lesson after hiring you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So, but that's all the candidates were aware of that piece of it, you know, with the timeline and everything as it went through. So, but we can discuss all of that as that emerges. We have a few months to begin that process. I believe later February is when we outlined to begin those conversations.
Yeah. Only other thought that I would have would be, I think it's great this district has had a history of trying to help people move up and, you know, try to achieve their, you know, their long-term dreams. And you mentioned there was an internal candidate beyond just Mr. Maloney. And so I think it'd be really important that we make sure that we provide feedback to that teacher about, you know, ways to improve, things that were strong, because, you know, I think it's really a great thing in North Reading that we really support people, you know, their career paths, and so that we, you know, really make sure to give some feedback so that they can, you know, well, we never want to lose anybody, so that they can continue to progress in their careers.
Yeah, I completely agree. I personally gave feedback and offered my services for continued support, but. Without getting specific, obviously, and identifiable, you know, the other candidates were great, and our internal candidate especially had a lot of positive feedback from the committee, and I've passed that on. So it was very, it's a good experience. I'm not sure if I mentioned as well that I believe that we're going to be posting an interim position for the middle school assistant principal as well. That will get us from now until the end of the year, and then again in the spring we'll reassess that long term as well, because we want to get some folks in place for the middle school.
Great. I saw Janine's hand go down and then back up. So Janine, do you have another comment?
Not in regards to this. So if you guys don't mind indulging me a second, the Title IX of Education Amendment of 1972. We did a first reading on November 5th, and we did not do a second reading today. So do we want to put that in so that that one is settled? It's for the handbook. It's not a policy.
Sure. I mean, Dr. Daly, should we put that into the handbook? Do you want to do that, or do you want to do?
So
it's the handbook, Title IX handbook.
Yeah, it's the handbook language, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The language for the handbook. So yeah, we could do a second reading of the handbook language tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
Do we usually do that? I mean, that's fine. We can do that.
Go ahead, Janine. Why don't you make a motion?
Yeah.
Well, we did a first reading, so I'm assuming we should do a second one. I've not in the past done anything for a handbook before, but I'm assuming because it's a pretty big change that's why it's presented.
Yeah, I think it's typical that I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the handbooks are presented to you and you vote on the handbooks. So this would be an amendment to the handbooks that we'd be inserting. So maybe it's not 2 readings that's required, but since we posed it that way, maybe we do it this way tonight, and then I will chalk this up to my learning. So I appreciate the feedback.
So yes or no?
Go ahead.
Okay.
The first one said first, so if it said first, we should probably do a second.
That was kind of my thinking. And Cindy, please bear with me because I'm going to have to make you amend it on the 5th just because it says it's policy and it should be for handbook. So I make a motion to accept as a second reading the Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 to update the handbook.
All right, second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. 5-0. Thank you, Janine.
You're welcome.
Okay. It's the Janine show. We're going to minutes now.
Oh my God. All right. I make a motion to accept the October 19th open session minutes as written.
I'll second.
So on discussion, there's only one thing that I think should possibly be added under administrative report. We mentioned that we talked about the potential changes to the Thanksgiving schedule, the days before Thanksgiving. We did bring that up at 2 different meetings. I believe this was the first meeting that it came up as part of the administrative report. I think Dr. Daly had reported on doing his listening tours, and this came up as an idea. We then put it on the next agenda, and so I know some community members had asked about the notice, and I believe this was a meeting that it came up first at, and if so, I think we should just note that as part of the administrative report that Dr. Daly reported on that idea. I don't know what other people think. First and foremost, am I correct that that's the right meeting?
It is the right meeting. I'm trying to remember whether it was part of the reopening or it was part of the administrative report. I can't remember, honestly. I can go back and check the tape. I would have said it was part of the reopening statement at the beginning.
Yeah.
I thought you put it at the end for some reason. I thought it was an idea that came up at the end, but was it part of the reopening?
I thought it was, but I can double check the recording, and we can amend those minutes for the.
If you think it's part of the reopening, I'm fine to just put it as part of the reopening.
They should put it there. Yep.
Discussed,
no extra work needed.
Okay, so I would try to amend, just have that amendment to the minutes to note it in there. Janine, you made the motion. Are you okay?
To put it under the the reopening update, so that it was known that it was a discussion. That's fine.
Right. Okay.
So the motion now is as amended.
As amended. So.
And the second is as amended.
And we have a second as amended, correct? Who was the second, Chris or? Yeah, Richard. Okay. So, we have the motion, we have the second. So, do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Passes 5-0. Thank you all. Janine, November 5th.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the November 5th open session meetings with an amendment to simply swatch out the word policy to handbook under D3, the first reading policies, for the Title IX of Education Amendments of 1972.
I second.
Okay, any discussion on this one? We'll do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Diana?
Abstain.
Oh, yes, I forgot you weren't here for that one. So, and then I'm an aye as well, so passes 4-0. Thank you very much.
Sorry, not Chris, Scott. I have a question. I see that there's a couple other people on here except for, instead of just the 5 of us, 6 of us. So I didn't know if it would be worth mentioning Rich's part of the donation and bids, because of last time there was a very generous donation by the Shang family, and sometimes we ask them to come in, but I just thought, because like I said, there's some other people out there, that it might be worth noting again.
Sure.
So I think it's important for folks who are on here to know that every meeting we have bids and donations that we're very happy to acknowledge from our most generous community here. And Janine's right that last meeting there was a couple of very generous donations from that family, and I think they're probably mentioned in those minutes, they were particularly generous. But we are fortunate to live in a very generous community and we have these acknowledgments every meeting. So thanks to the community.
Okay, thank you very much.
And
go ahead. No, go ahead, Rich.
And am I next now on the?
Well, no budget update. No staffing, correct, Mr. Connolly and Dr. Daly?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Let me go to the bids and donations.
And so as an example, I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $5,000 from the E. Ethel Little PTO to fund the purchase of technology equipment, including 3 mobile TV floor stands and 3 smartboard interactive display units at the Little School.
I'll second.
Only discussion is we're very fortunate to have PTOs that can fill in the gaps that we can't get in the budget. So thank you to everybody. For a roll call vote, we'll do Rich.
Aye.
Janine.
Aye.
Diana.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. 5-0. Thank you. That the only one I don't have in front of me. Yes.
Yes, that was it. Yep.
Subcommittee updates. So policy subcommittee. Janine or Chris?
We pretty much discussed everything that was discussed. So unless there are a couple more that'll be in the pipeline coming shortly, but we need a little bit more time to review it.
I think Diana's been messaging saying she would like to talk a little bit more about policies tonight.
I would.
Athletic subcommittee.
Well, if you want, I can go off for another 5 minutes if you'd like.
Keep it going, Rich, please.
Athletic subcommittee, Janine and Diana.
You want to take this one?
Sure. The presentation that you saw tonight was probably the brunt of our discussion around winter sports, so I don't need to rehash that, but just kind of getting feedback from the athletic subcommittee on that presentation and details. And then there was just a general discussion around the facilities and the need for the facilities post-Thanksgiving, and just trying to align the usage of facilities around some of the, the odd scheduling that we have around sports this time around. So I think that, things such as the lights for the field are typically off on a certain period of time, and now we might have to look into the cost of running those lights from February to April for various purposes. So just things like that, nothing too substantial. I don't know if there's anything else that I missed, but those were the 2 big ones that I made note of.
No, that's pretty much it. I actually got in like a minute or two late, so I didn't catch all of I caught the tail end of the fields and the lights and all that kind of stuff. That's why I deferred to you.
Okay. Fine Arts Subcommittee, Matt? Chris or Reg?
Yeah.
Chris, you want me to go? You want to go?
Well, I'll say we spent a lot of the time chatting about a plan that the performing arts staff have been putting together to coordinate, because there are, as I was struck as they were talking, at as complicated as I come away from any conversation thinking that that COVID is for teachers and students to navigate. It's like hearing them talk about how in planning a chorus class in the time of COVID, you have to not only juggle how much faster things spread when singing, but the rate of the airflow, how often the machines kick in and recycle air, and then how to navigate lining up times for kids to sing with sufficient time for the room to replenish its air, and a lot for when the machine will kick on during a 70-minute period. And just that these are the factors they need to figure out to then give kids as much uptime and come out of it thinking that the kids will still end up getting to sing roughly as much time as they would have in a quote-unquote regular class from a year ago. It was just astounding. It kind of put in perspective to me just how tricky it is for everybody involved, and particularly for people whose activities, are rendered more dangerous with COVID. So that was, a big takeaway for me. But I had to jump out a little bit early. So, Rich, if you want to fill in the latter part.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just chime in on that as well. I mean, they have basically produced what is at the moment a 7-page draft of a plan that is in its own way as detailed as our reopening plan, smaller in scope, but still just as detailed. And it is pretty impressive, and the amount of thought that goes into it. And I think the other key thing that was discussed was, and Dr. Daly, you can chime in on this, was efforts to get some in-person or some face-to-face instruction with students who are fully remote. Would you agree that was the other big part of the discussion, Dr. Daly?
Yes, absolutely. So this is something that, our schedule, the way our schedule is set up and the way our elementary specialists are set up, they are currently not able to provide live instruction to the students that are fully in remote. So at the secondary level, there is some live instruction provided, but the way it's been done at the elementary school, it has not been possible to date. We're actually going to be able to do some of that next week during the fully remote days, because those specialist teachers now are going to be able to just address all the students at once. But it's quite challenging with the elementary age students to be leading them outside in a phys ed exercise and also talking to a camera. I mean, so it just was logistically challenging, and there's just been the numbers. The elementary specialists have taken on a tremendous amount this year, and so our curriculum leaders at the secondary level have just asked me today if they can get some time to go down and shadow them to help try to troubleshoot some ways to do things a little bit more efficiently. But what we're really trying to think about is some outside of the box ways to free up some folks, or to get some folks on their at some alternative times to be able to provide some connections for students at home. It might not be, it might be a grade level, it might be across the district, where someone's doing K-1 art. So the students are getting curriculum, they're just getting PowerPoints pre-recorded type of lessons and assignments that they're able to do for their specials. So this would be an opportunity for that. So I have received some correspondence from families in the remote cohorts that are really looking for that connection, because for some kids, as we know, what motivates them for school are the arts and the phys ed and the specialist classes. And so we really want to try to make that happen. So that was discussed. And then certainly they did a tremendous job with this plan, and then just trying to find the locations of where they can have jazz band inside. They are still having some classes outside. They could come inside and do something very different. They could do more music theory, more written work. But obviously, knowing our folks, they want to make sure that they're providing the same opportunities that students would have in a typical year. So that means bigger spaces, spreading out to 10 feet, all the other considerations that were mentioned earlier about airflow and droplets and They are doing a fantastic job of keeping up with what's current, checking in with what's coming out of the Massachusetts department, but also through all of their music and performing arts channels as well. So it was really a pretty thorough presentation and meeting, and we have some really good plans in place. And I did discuss it with the administrators today to help find that space and get everybody inside. We've had good luck with the weather this year, being able to be outside. And if you have seen, it's phenomenal to see the full band outside, or Miss Lister's classes, or all these different classes outside. I will note also that this week I've been able to observe remotely and sort of go into the classes the way that the students are going in remotely. So I was able to observe a piano class of Miss Kane's. I was able to observe Mr. Dexter's art class and another video production class. So at least those three classes from the remote angle, seeing it exactly as the students see it at the secondary level. And it's pretty incredible the way they've just, envisioned using all their creative skills to really come up with a way to keep the students engaged remotely and in person. So it's pretty impressive. So.
Hey, thank you very much. Mrs. Imbriano, you have your hand up.
Oh, I just forgot to shut it off. Sorry.
Just checking. Okay, subcommittee schedule. We just have one on the board, which is Finance Planning Team, December 1st at 8 a.m. Administrative report, Dr. Daly.
Just a few items of note. I did want to note about the Notorious group being selected for the 2 different competitions. I believe that was discussed and covered earlier, but that was very exciting news that Ms. Kane shared with us also at the meeting yesterday. And this plaque came, I discussed in the spring, I believe, about Miss Whitney Cleary was a semifinalist for Teacher of the Year for 2021. And we're very proud of Miss Cleary and her great work that she's done as a curriculum leader and as a science teacher at the Hood School. So Dr. McKay was very proud to share this, as was Miss Cleary. So I just thought I'd take a moment to recognize her great achievement.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I may even have her come and say a few words in the future. Actually, this is a truly remarkable honor to be a semifinalist for this award, and this is not the first time she's made it that far. So she's a phenomenal teacher at the Hood School, as are many others. But it's really great to see our teachers being recognized this way.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Correspondence, Dr. Daly.
So I just wanted to share I'm not sure, Mr. Buckley, the way to do this. I shared with you about the typical the land information that needs to be shared and discussed. Is that something that I would present in this way?
Not usually. It was just I think it was just the town was looking for comments on some changes to public land. And so if anybody wants to, I think maybe you can just send it around so people can look at the letter if anybody has any comments. I looked it up. Is that like over by where the town hall is right now? Is that the town hall land?
Yeah, it's 239 North Street. So I will just disseminate that if there's anyone that wants. We do have to make reviews to that no later than December 4th. So I guess if there's something urgent that needs to be discussed, we could have another meeting before the scheduled meeting.
I don't think there was anything that impacted us in there.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to. It seems routine, but again, my first time through, I just wanted to make sure that that we did it. So
yeah, I think it was just everybody in town got town officials got or town employees or whoever got the comment on it, and so I don't think there's anything.
What is it? 239.
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing there. It's just a little park.
There's no school around there. There's just it was just talking about like cutting back trees and the visual lines and
stormwater. I'll share it around for folks to view, and if there's anything, we can discuss it if needed.
Could also even be that I don't even know if it was that we were doing changes or they were doing changes, and there could have been an abutter that was doing something, and we were an abutter on this one. But I don't think there's anything there. Only other correspondence was a number of parents had reached out about the Thanksgiving remote days, and I think we all saw some of those emails, and we responded and had the parent forum. So Okay, future business. So our next meeting is going to be Thursday, December 10th at 6:30 p.m.
Correct.
And
that is a virtual meeting, but it will be at the Hood School. So I'm going to recommend that anyone that wants to attend from the school committee, similar to the way we've been attending in person at the Hoods at the DLL, we could attend at the Hood School. There will be some students there, but most students will be virtual, and the members of the public and the press and everyone still would be remote as we've been doing. So there would be a virtual meeting, but our location would be at the Hood if you so choose.
okay, so that is on Thursday, December 10th at 6:30 p.m. at the Hood or
Correct.
virtual. And if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, I guess we'll do a roll call vote. Janine?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you, everybody, for the time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
And I forgot to mention in my report that Mr. Connolly, in addition to being all that he does for us, he is a coach of his children's teams and also of a cross-country team. And you want to share, Michael?
We won the league championship today, so
Congratulations.
big day.
Nice.
Great.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting through the meeting that you only had to speak at once.
I know. I did feel like this could have been one that Michael could have had a night off.
Worries.
Yeah, but thank you, Michael. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Patrick, quick question.
Yes.
Did you move the parent advisory council from tomorrow to the 4th?
Yes.
Okay. Just
Am I
wanted to
supposed to
make
go to
sure.
those still?
I go. I've always gone.
Do
Am
I
I supposed to go to those?
should I be listing those as subcommittee meetings, Janine, or is that just a sort of an offshoot group?
It's just an offshoot group, and I've just gone because I used to be a president at the Hood, so I just kind of keep in touch.
Yeah, I'm unable to do that meeting tomorrow, so I've moved it to December 4th, and I think I believe everyone received that information. I hope that maybe you were not on there. I'm sorry.
No, I did. I just wanted to confirm because I'm like, well, why does he have one on the 4th if we have one tomorrow? So I figured I'd ask while you were there.
I don't think I'm in the normal group there, Patrick. So I mean, whatever. If you want me to attend like I did the last time, I'm happy to. And if you don't, I don't need to either. So,
okay,
whatever you prefer. Okay.
However it's supposed to work, I'm willing to do that. I just there's no meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks. I'll have a good Thanksgiving.
You too. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.